morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to listen to me this morning. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about buying a puppy and how you should buy a puppy and where you should go for advice. The fact is that a lot of people buy puppies for the wrong reason, and they don't think about it enough before they buy a puppy, and that can lead to problems in later life. So these are some of the things you should start to think about before you even consider getting a puppy. And you should really do your homework even before you decide that you want to open your home to a puppy. First of all, can you afford it? You've got a number of things to think about. You've got the purchase price for a start, and that can vary from anything from around about £500 to £2,000 or £3,000. You've got to think about the food, of course, and the price of food can vary. There's all sorts of things you can feed your dog on, and that will vary a lot. You also have to think about vets fees, because vets will get ill from time to time, and there's no national health service for vets. So it's another thing you have to consider. And of course there are additional hidden costs that you might not consider. For example, boarding fees if you go away, or someone to come in and look after your dogs. You've also got to consider, is your home suitable for a dog? And you may have lived quite happily without a dog. Suddenly you're going to open your home to a dog. You've got to think about all those things you've got in your home. Do you want the dog to go upstairs? Do you want it to stay downstairs? Are there lots of things for the dog to chew? So there's lots of things to consider. And of course there is the commitment of exercise. Dogs all need exercise. They can't exercise themselves. Even if you've got a big garden, they need to go out, not just for exercise in itself, but for mental stimulation. And the one thing I always tell people to be concerned about is if you've got an older dog that's died and you're looking for a puppy to replace it, for a start, it's been a long time since you've had a young puppy, and you're going to be, if your dogs if your dogs live perhaps till 10 or 12 years old, then you're opening your home to a new puppy. Not only is that puppy going to take a lot of your energy, but you're 12 years older than you were when you last had your dog, and you've probably forgotten what it's like to have a new puppy. So they're the things that you should think about even before you consider that you want a puppy. But we've just commissioned some research, and we were very interested to see that 45% of new owners do no research whatsoever before they buy a puppy. So I want you all to now, can you all give yourselves a good clap? Clap your hands. And I'll tell you why you're doing that, because you have done your research. You've come here today to discover dogs, and that should be the first step on getting a new puppy. So I want to congratulate you and thank you all for coming along. So why do people buy puppies? What influences them? 60% are influenced just by appearance. They see a dog, they think, oh, I want one of those, it might look nice in my home, it's nice and fluffy or shaggy, or it's got a nice short firm coat. But that's what they want, that's all they think about when they go to actually pick their puppy. Amazingly, 49% admit that they are actually influenced by the media. And I know that we at the Kennel Club, we see a huge increase in the popularity of a breed, or inquiries for a breed, as soon as a film comes out. So we know about Lassie, and that made the rough collie a very popular dog. 101 Dalmatians, when the original film came out, everybody suddenly wanted a Dalmatian. More recently, a breed of dog called the Dog de Bordeaux was made famous by the film Turner and Hooch. And we'd hardly ever seen any in this country until that film. They are now in the top 20 breeds. So you can see the influence that the media has. And then, of course, there's celebrity. And I'm going to use the example. I hope Paris Hilton, has anybody seen Paris Hilton here today? I hope she's not here today. But she's quite well known for carrying a Chihuahua around in her handbag. And as soon as her image was in the media carrying a dog around in a handbag, everybody suddenly wanted a Chihuahua. The reason, one of the things you should certainly think about, one of the main reasons that you should buy a dog is try and select a dog that fits into your family lifestyle. So you really need to know the characteristics of the dog you're buying. And that's one of the things you'll be able to do here today. You can see all the breeds, and you can actually go and talk to breeders about those breeds and find out what those dogs are really like. Because they may have a lovely soft appearance, but they may be a dog that's rather shy or standoffish. And another reason that, of course, people often want a dog, and the reason that I chose my breed, is because I grew up with one as a child, and I have lots of happy memories of my dog as a child. And those are good reasons. They're certainly better reasons than the first few, or the most popular reasons that people choose a dog. So, what should influence your choice? Lifestyle. Think about your lifestyle. What do you do? What are you prepared to put up with? How much influence do you expect the dog to have on your lifestyle? Is it a high or low maintenance dog? Now, what do we mean by that? Some dogs take a lot more care and attention than others. If you've got a long-coated dog that needs a lot of grooming, you have to put time aside for that. And if you have a dog that needs a lot of exercise, you need to put time aside for that. But the most important factor, of course, is its temperament. And the great thing about pedigree dogs is they have a vast range of different temperaments. They're not all the same. So you can select a dog that's absolutely right for you. They can be particularly friendly with strangers, they can be a little bit standoffish, they can be very affectionate, they can be more aloof, they can be boisterous dogs or calm dogs. So you have the choice, it's up to you to choose, and don't be influenced by appearance. Think about the type of dog that's going to fit in with your lifestyle. So, pedigree or crossbreed dogs. We love all dogs here at the Kennel Club. We always associate with pedigree dogs, but we are really trying to make a difference for all dogs. There are certain advantages to having a crossbreed dog. For example, the cost will often be lower. Now, that's not necessarily so of some of what we refer to as the designer crossbreeds. These are the dogs that have been bred with taking two known breeds and mixing them together. But a lot of crossbreed dogs are in dogs' homes and are looking for homes, so often the cost will be lower. And there's lots of good centres. You'll see some centres here today that are offering crossbreed dogs. There's Dogs Trust, Blue Cross and Wood Green, for example. The thing to remember, and what's changed over the years, is that we have very few stray dogs roaming the street now. Most dogs that you find in homes will have been abandoned for some reason. And the thing that you have to remember is that you may be inheriting someone else's problems. The dog may be in a home because the owner couldn't cope with that. Now, that may be because the owner hasn't come along to discover dogs and find out all the characteristics of that dog. But of course, with a crossbreed, it's somewhat more difficult to know what those characteristics are going to be. I would say there are certain advantages to buying a pedigree dog. First of all, the temperament. You can actually predict what the temperament is likely to be. It will have years of breeding of a certain type of dog behind it, and if it's a gun dog, you know it's going to have certain retrieving instincts, for example. You're going to know what it's going to end up like. You're not going to buy a tiny puppy and then find it grows to the size you can't cope with. And of course, you've got much more chance to actually do your research, like you're doing today, and coming along and choosing the dog that's right for your lifestyle. That's much more difficult with a crossbreed because you have no idea what it's going to turn out like. So before you buy a puppy, do your research. There's lots of places you can do research. I would really strongly recommend you go to our website. There's so much information on that site about buying a dog. Go to breed clubs. All the breeds that are registered with the Kennel Club have at least one breed club, and those are full of people who have a lot of information about their breed. They know their breed inside out. If you hear of something that's too good to be true, then trust me, it's likely to be too good to be true. If you hear of a dog going very, very cheaply or in poor circumstances, or someone turns up with a dog that's just the dog for you, then there's probably more to it. So make sure if you hear a story that is too good to be true, you look into the background. Good breeders often don't advertise. They have waiting lists. So I would say to you, if there's a certain type of dog or breed of dog that you want, do be prepared to wait. Don't just go and buy the first one that comes along. Recommendation is a great thing. Speak to your friends. If you want a particular type of dog and you know someone that's got one and they've had a very good experience, then ask them where do they get their dog. Ask them a bit more about it. And also try your local vets. We try and engage with vets, and the vet may know the local breeders in your area. The important thing is, if you are unsure, check. You can always ring the Kennel Club. We will tell you if we have any information on that breeder. But always check. Don't go and buy the first puppy you see. So, where can you buy a puppy? Pet shops. Not many pet shops have puppies available these days, but there are one or two that is a place you could buy a puppy. More recently, we've seen an increase in pet supermarkets. Now, these are large places where they will have a lot of puppies on sale from time to time. There are actually lots of adverts in the newspapers and the free ads. I would absolutely strongly suggest to you these are the worst places that you can buy puppies. The fact that those puppies are being sold in that way is an indication that the breeder didn't do a lot of work in actually rearing those puppies. And most of the puppies that are sold in that way will have come from puppy farms. Now, the problem with that is you can get this puppy, you can bring it home, and it may need some extra veterinary treatment, and you may need to spend extra money. But of course, what you're actually doing, by actually buying that puppy, you're encouraging those poor breeders and those puppy farms to operate, because they're making money down the line. And you might see a puppy in a pet shop and it might be in very good condition and all clean and nicely looked after, but the way its mother has been kept or the way it's been reared has been very, very poor. So I want you to think very, very carefully about that. The truth is that most puppies bought from those sources will have come from a puppy farm or from a very poor breeder. So you should always 100% go and see the puppy where it was born, go and see the puppy with the breeder in its own home and with its mother. So, where should you buy a puppy? Only buy direct from the breeder. See the puppy with its mother, see where it was raised, and I would say, and I'll talk a little bit more about the Kennel Club accredited breeder scheme, but I would also strongly recommend you visit an accredited breeder, a Kennel Club accredited breeder. So what's a dog breeder? Well, I'm a dog breeder. I've bred dogs for 30 years. There's me with a couple of my dogs. I'm very sorry about the bin in the background. I didn't think about that when I took the picture. And it was a couple of years ago, because you can see I'm a little bit lighter there. There's my wife. We have our puppies in our home. They are part of our family, and that's how a huge proportion of people who register dogs with the Kennel Club, they are like me. They are people who breed 1 litter, or perhaps even less a year. I've certainly bred less than 1 litter each year. So these are some of the misconceptions about dog breeders. Breeders keep their dogs in kennels. Well, I do have a kennel in my garden, but I can promise you it's only ever been used about 6 weeks in the 30 years that I've had it. And I have it there for one reason only. If I ever have to have a dog that comes back, and I will always rehome dogs that have to have another home, I may need somewhere to put it if it doesn't get on with my dogs. Breeders don't keep their dogs as family pets. They're some sort of commodity. Well, actually, that's not true. There's some of my dogs. There's a puppy with my cats on the bed. They often sleep on the bed with me. There's some, I even teach them to build snowmen, look. That's how our dogs live, and that's how the vast majority of dogs live with breeders. They are family pets. We just happen to have the odd litter from time to time. Anyone who keeps a bitch can be a breeder. So I hear people all the time talk to me. I talk to them about the accredited breeder scheme, and they say, oh, well, I'm not a breeder. Anybody who has a litter of puppies is a breeder of some sort. But there are different types of breeder, of course. Then we have 35,000 people who register a litter with us each year. So we have 35,000 people who have a litter of puppies. Now they can be, I've categorised them, and these lines move of course, but you can categorise them into these various types. There's the pet or family breed, and I'd probably put myself very firmly into that. They're very much my family pets, and the most dogs I've ever had is 5. I've got a lot of friends who have more dogs than that. Again, they may live in the house, they may live out in kennels, but they may have 10 or so dogs. There are then larger breeders who usually will specialise in one type of breed because they love that breed, and they may have the space to accommodate that breed, they can have the space to have kennels outside. And then you get the large kennels, which have more than one breed, and what concerns me often about those type of breeders is that they will often switch from breed to breed. They'll go what is more popular at one time or another. It doesn't necessarily make them a bad breeder, but you should be very careful and be very, very careful when you see adverts that always have puppies available. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier on, you should be prepared to wait. Always be suspicious if someone's got a puppy for you available now. So when you contact the breeder, do expect to ask the questions. We as dog breeders are sometimes very rude. The first thing we'll do is say, why do you want one of my puppies? And the reason I'm like that is because I spent a lot of my time, I spent at least 8 weeks rearing those puppies, perhaps treating them and treating them with kindness and really putting an awful lot of work into rearing those puppies. So I'm very suspicious of someone who wants to take them away. And believe me, although breeders will sell puppies for money, that is the last thing that you actually want to do. You're actually bringing puppies into this world to give other people pleasure. So those are some of the questions that I would ask you. Do you have children? Do you have other pets? Do you work full time? How secure is your garden? All the things that I want to know about you, and I can be very intrusive. But you should also yourselves be very prepared to ask questions. Ask the breeder how much they know about that breed. You really want to buy from someone who knows a lot about what they're talking about. Ask how many dogs they own and how many breeds they have. Ask them questions about the breed. They're the expert. You're going to them for knowledge. They should expect to answer your questions. And also ask about health issues. We've all heard a lot about the health of pedigree dogs. There's a lot of work that responsible breeders are doing now, and they can actually give some sort of guide to you on the health of those puppies and what diseases that those puppies are going to be free from, because they've actually been able to do tests for those diseases. Trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, be prepared to walk away. And I can't say that strongly enough, because it really is very, very important. You're making a decision that's going to affect you for the next 12 or 15 years of your life. Trust your instincts. Go with your instincts. If you're not happy, be prepared to walk away. And the other thing is, I know we live in the internet society these days. We all correspond by email. But I would say, after maybe you make contact initially by email, but pick the phone up. You want to hear the person on the other end of the phone. They want to hear you. And so just avoid getting into long email discussions. Meet the breeder. I would suggest you avoid mobile telephone numbers. You want to know that that breeder's got a premises where they have those dogs. And I know that some people don't have fixed lines, but be suspicious of mobile telephone numbers, and certainly don't part with any money straight away. As I said, as a responsible breeder, the last thing I'm actually interested in is the money side of it. So make sure that you actually are very, very happy before you part with any money. Certainly go to the breeder's address. Do not meet someone halfway at a motorway service station, for example. Go to their home. That's where you want to see the puppy. I can actually tell you, there's a scam going on at the moment. Only this week I heard about it. Someone had placed an advertisement in a free newspaper, or actually on the internet as well, saying puppies free to good home. And it involved a friend of mine who got right down the road before they said, well, there will be a £150 delivery charge, and I need that up front. There were no puppies. So these people, there's really nothing to do with dogs. It's an internet scam that just happens to involve dogs. So be very, very aware. And this sentence at the bottom here is what we find a lot of people say. They actually say, oh my God, buying a puppy is worse than adopting a child, because responsible breeders, that's how they think. They think of these dogs as their children. They really are very reluctant to part with them, so be prepared for that. But if you get a dog from a good breeder, it will be worth every penny, and it's not about the cost of the dog, it's about the value of the dog. So what should you look for? Go to see. Go with the idea that I'm going to go and take away a puppy, I'm going to buy a puppy. Just go to see the puppies. Go and talk to the breeder. Make sure you see it with its mother and its littermates. Ask if you can handle and touch the puppies. Now, some breeders are a little bit reluctant to let you do that. They may be a bit concerned about infection, but they need to have really some sort of good reason. Personally, I have no problem. I let people come and play with my puppies, but I'm quite careful about it. What should you expect to get with a puppy? Well, of course, there's registration certificate, and I would suggest you very strongly make sure it's a Kennel Club registration certificate. There are other people out there that are giving slightly dubious paperwork, so make sure it is a Kennel Club registration certificate, and you can see copies of that on our website. You'll get a pedigree certificate, a contract of sale. Now, I have to say, it's one of the things I felt very uncomfortable about when I started breeding dogs, because I was doing this, it wasn't a business. But I have to say, now that I've worked for the Kennel Club, I really do understand the value of having a contract that lays out exactly what the terms of sale are. and it will tell a little bit about the puppy, a little bit about what happens if things go wrong. And it's very important that the puppy buyer knows from the very early stages I set the expectations for the puppy buyer, and the puppy buyer knows what to expect from me. And of course, I also tell the puppy buyer what happens is, you should ask this to the breeder, what happens if I can't keep the puppy? What happens if I have a problem with it? Be prepared to take the breeder's advice. If you go to a breeder and they say, look, I really don't think this breed is right for you, then think long and hard before you buy that breed of dog. There's probably very good reasons. And it may be that it's just that you think you want that dog, but the indications are that it doesn't suit your lifestyle. And breeders are quite careful. They want to place dogs in long and loving homes that they're going to live for the rest of their life. And be prepared to walk away. If you go somewhere and things aren't right, and you see the puppy's in poor condition, I know it's difficult not to feel sorry for them, but if you take one of those puppies, you will be actually encouraging that poor breeder to breed more dogs. So be prepared to walk away. Listen to the breeder, listen to their advice, listen to what they say. If you have got doubt, then take further advice. Go and see someone else. Go and talk to the kennel club. Go and talk to breed clubs. I've talked a little bit about health testing, about diseases in dogs. Any dog can get disease, but some diseases are hereditary, and there are a lot of things now that breeders can do to actually detect diseases or detect diseases in the parents of dogs, so they can actually breed puppies that they know are going to be free from certain diseases. Now you must remember, a puppy is a living, breathing thing, and things can go wrong. But a responsible breeder, a good breeder, will always do whatever checks they can before they even make a decision to breed. Some of those tests, we have lots of schemes running. We have DNA tests that are available. We have Kennel Club BVA schemes that are available that actually, some of those schemes will come with the certificate. So you can ask the breeder, can I see the health certificates for any of these diseases that are known in those breeds? And there are also something called litter screening. Some diseases, breeders can actually screen the litter before the litter even go. So, I'll just talk very briefly about what a puppy farm. I've made references to puppy farmers, and effectively puppy farmers are people who breed commercially just for money. They're not really worried about the welfare of the dogs. Now I hope that nobody here would knowingly buy a dog from a puppy farmer, but as I said before, if you're not seeing the dog where it's reared and in its own home with the breeder, the chances are, or a very high chance, that that puppy has come from a puppy farm. Good breeders concentrate on their breed. They're really concerned about where their puppies go, about their breed. They're very knowledgeable. But it's not just about volume. There are breeders who breed quite a lot of dogs, but they are still good breeders. So don't just be influenced by volume, but take all those things into account. I shall talk a little bit about the accredited breeder scheme. What we've tried to do, I've told you a lot of the things that you should be looking for. And in our accredited breeder scheme, we've tried to wrap some of these good ideas, good breeding practice up into one scheme to make it easy for you, so that you know if you're going to an accredited breeder, they will do all these things that they should be doing. And there's some of the things it's compulsory for an accredited breeder. They have to do whatever health screening. They have to identify, have to have their parents and the dogs microchipped, or DNA tested, or tattooed. They have to give you information with the puppy. You'll come away with lots of information. And they have to be visited. We carry out visits, we go and inspect them from time to time. So accredited breeders have to sign up to all these requirements. And you also, with a puppy from an accredited breeder, you get the opportunity to engage with the Kennel Club to tell us about your puppy buying experience. We've got about 6,400 members at the moment. I've said this is some of the stuff they have to give you. They have to tell you about the breed. They have to give you information about socialisation, exercise training, feeding and worming and immunisation, and they have to provide you with a contract of sale. They have to have good facilities. They have to commit to rehoming. Now, from time to time, something's going to go wrong, and probably the most common reason these days why a puppy has to be rehomed is marriage breakups. Now, it's not something I'm sure any of you are contemplating here today, but it's something that may happen that may be around the corner. So often, if that's the case, sometimes people have to suddenly both go out to work, good breeders will have their puppies back, or at least help you with rehoming, and accredited breeders have to do that. Accredited breeders can't deal in dogs, they can only sell dogs that are bred by themselves, and they have to follow any other breed-specific recommendations, because we have lots of things in the accredited breeder scheme that accredited breeders have to do that are specific to that breed. Every puppy from an accredited breeder goes in one of those wallets, so if you go to an accredited breeder, they're not giving you one of those wallets, you should ask why. And those wallets will tell you about the scheme, but it will also contain all the documents for that relate to that dog. They'll also got in there a feedback form, and that's your opportunity to tell us about the puppy buying experience. So if you have a problem, tell us and we can do something about it. So who benefits from the accredited breeder scheme? Well, I can assure you the Kennel Club doesn't. The scheme costs us a lot of money to actually administer. Actually, interestingly, the breeders don't benefit hugely, because if they're a good breeder, they're doing all those things anyway. But of course, you as puppy buyers, you really do benefit, because you know a lot of work's gone into that puppy before you even turn up at the door, and you have got somewhere you can come if something is not right. But above all, the ones who really benefit are the dogs, because they're brought up in a good environment, a well-socialised environment, and you know that the mothers of those puppies have been looked after properly as well. So this is what we say. If this notice at the top here, the Kennel Club making a difference for dogs, what I can say, you can play your part as puppy buyers, do your homework, and together we can all really make a difference for dogs. So that's all I've really got to say to you, but if anybody's got any questions, Catherine's at the back there with the microphone. If anybody has got a question, stick your hand up and I'll be happy to answer it if I can. There's one down the front there.
Oh, hi.
That's it.
I just wondered if you already have a bitch, would it be recommended to get a male dog or another girl?
Well, it depends on the breed. Certainly, of course, the fact is, if you've got a dog of one sex and you get the opposite sex, the first thing you have to think about is, I'm not going to want unwanted puppies. And of course, bitches will come into season. So the first thing you've got to say is, if you don't want to breed, then one of the dogs should be neutered. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. Or you've got to find a way of keeping them separate, and that's not really fair. But it does depend on the breed, and again, this is where you should take advice from breeders. Certainly in my breed, I have bull terriers. They don't always get on with other dogs. I do have 5 in the house, which are fine, but I'm very experienced, and I won't normally sell the same sex to someone who's already got a dog of the existing sex. So, but it does depend on breed. There are other breeds that get on fine, same sexes together. It's a rule of thumb, not always true. 2 bitches will tend to get on better than 2 males, but it's not necessarily always the case. And I would say the ideal is probably a dog and a bitch, but it really does depend on the breed. This is where you should take advice from an experienced breeder of that breed.
Hi Bill, I totally agree with you that you should every time always see the dog with its mother. But the other thing I often get is people saying, oh, it was a wonderful breeder, they had the father and the mother there. My view is that the father, if it's the best father to be mated to that bitch to produce the best puppies, it's very unlikely to be the one they happen to own. So I'd like your comments on that, please.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting point. For many years, some of the dog organisations were giving the advice, make sure you see a puppy with its mother and father. Funnily enough, the only place where you can almost guarantee to see a puppy with its mother and father is a puppy farmer, because they will have both lines, they have the mother and father there. What you said, David, is perfectly true. Most breeders, most good breeders, they want to go and use the best dog they can that's available in the country. The dog that's been health checked, that's suitable for their bitch, that suits their lines. It just so happened, when I first had bull terriers, I lived in Surrey. Most of the bull terriers that I wanted to use at stud lived in Newcastle. So I used to have to drive up to Newcastle. But I wanted to do that because I was a responsible breeder. But you're absolutely right. Most people will go and use a sire that's not their own dog. That's not always the case, of course. But I can tell you that puppy farmers will always have both parents. They'll trot them out, be more than happy to show you them both. You should definitely see a puppy with its mother, but don't necessarily expect to see the father. But actually, a lot of breeders who own the father of puppies is more than happy for you to go and drive and go and see that puppy, but it might mean you have to go to Newcastle to see the father. One down the front here.
On health tests, how many generations back should it be clear?
On a pedigree, right, the question, I'm not sure if you all heard the question. The question was, how many generations back should you expect to see on the pedigree? It's a very interesting question because you'll hear this expression from time to time, well, I've got a dog with a pedigree as long as your arm. Every single dog in this hall here today has a pedigree of the same length. They all go back to wolves originally, so actually all dogs have a pedigree of the same length. But the pedigree form that you'll normally see that a breeder will give you will normally be 3 or 5 generations. Now within the Kennel Club, we have pedigrees that go back 10 or 20 generations. We go back to about the 1980s when we put everything on computer, so we can go back further, but the pedigree form that you will get from a breeder will normally be 3 or 5 generations, but that bears no relationship on the quality of the dog. It's an old wives' tale that the longer a pedigree, the better the dog is. Every dog has a pedigree of the same length.
Hi, can I ask about your accredited breeder scheme?
Can you hold it a bit nearer to?
Can I ask about your accredited breeder scheme?
Yeah.
How is that enforced? And do you do things like inspections, or would you only do an inspection, say, if there was a complaint?
Okay, the question was, for those who didn't hear it, it was how do we enforce the rules of the accredited breeder scheme, and do we do inspections? First of all, although you've asked one question, I'll answer it in 2 halves because there are 2 elements to it. First of all, every litter application that we received for an accredited breeder, the litter registration is checked at that time. So we check to see if those health tests are in place. We check to see that everything is in place correctly, all the paperwork's been done, and we have those current health test results. If that doesn't happen at that point, then the litter registration is stopped, and we go back to the breeder and say, we've got something missing here. In terms of inspection, every single accredited breeder can expect to be seen at some point. Now clearly we've got 6,400 members, we haven't got 6,400 people to go out and visit them, but we are getting through them. We'll do about 1,000 visits this year. We do expect to visit accredited breeders once every 3 years eventually, but we probably won't reach that point until the end of next year. So definitely there will be some who haven't yet been inspected, but you can ask them that. You can ask the Kennel Club, we will tell you if someone's had an inspection. And again, I would say, if you go to an accredited breeder and you're not happy with what you see, then tell us, because we can do something about it. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about the people who aren't accredited breeders. Question in the middle here, Catherine.
Do you do any inspections on the people who are, because if you go on your website, there's a lot of breeders, many of whom don't have this accreditation.
Yeah, we register dogs. We have it's quite a complicated legal situation. It's very difficult for us to refuse to register puppies. There's 2 reasons for that. First of all, we have what's known a legal position that's known as a dominant market position, which makes it very difficult legally to refuse, and we would actually be in a European court for restriction of trade. But actually there's a much wider, more important issue than that. It's important to us that we are able to retain influence and persuade people about things like health testing, about responsible breeding. If we refuse to register people, register puppies, those people will still breed dogs. And if you look at, you pick up the free papers, you'll see lots of dogs in there that aren't registered with the Kennel Club. We can have no influence over those people at all. So we want to keep everyone with us so that we can give positive influence. We've done a great job with the Kennel Club of explaining to the public what Kennel Club register means. Now we really want to change that and show the public what accredited breeder bred means.
Hiya.
Hello.
I'm part of your accredited scheme at the moment.
Good.
My question is, when is the Kennel Club going to benchmark the health tests? Because I know people that are accredited for breeding with animals that are not fit for poultry.
I'm trying to simplify the question. What the question was, when are the Kennel Club going to benchmark health testing? Now, what's the truth? What the situation at the moment is, we ask the breeders to test their animals for whatever health test we can do. What we don't say at the moment, we don't say, well, if it fails a health test, you can't breed from that dog. Now, there's quite a lot of reasons why we can't do that, and let's take something like probably one of the best researched diseases so far is hip dysplasia. And we have a hip scoring scheme that's been around for 40 years that gives a hip score, and it gives an indication to the breeder what that hip score is and what the puppies are likely to inherit. Now, it's not absolute science, because it's perfectly possible for a dog with a high hip score to produce low hip scores, and for an animal with a low hip score to produce high hip scores. It's not, the science isn't there yet, it's not a DNA test, so at the moment we don't actually give advice. We do give advice that you should breed below the mean average. That means we take all the average hip scores and say you should breed below that. I think that in the future, and certainly in the German Shepherd breed, I know we'll be doing it probably as a pilot scheme, so we will be doing it at some point in the future, but yet we don't do that. And I would ask you all to do your research to find out, before you even actually look at health test results, to find out what the actual averages are for those breeds. DNA tests are slightly different. There are animals that have a clear status, a carrier status, and a clear status. Carrier animals can carry a hereditary disease with no problems whatsoever. You would never know. It's just that there's a possibility that it would pass that puppy on to pass that disease on to its offspring. So it will actually have no effect on that dog at all.
Hi, I wanted to speak about breed characteristics that sometimes detrimental to specific pedigrees. For instance, things like dogs that have quite big heads where their mothers have fair sections and things like that. What is the Kennel Club doing to kind of address those particular issues?
Okay, I'll just repeat the question so everyone can hear it. The question was, what is the Kennel Club doing about breed characteristics that affect health? And we all know there has been some publicity about this very recently. About 10 years ago, we started to look at our breed standards. And our breed standards are just a description of what the breed should look like. We looked at our breed standards because it was clear that what some breeders were doing was, if a breed standard asked for a big head, then breeders thought, well, if it's asking for a big head, then the bigger the better. So we started to look at all our standards a long time ago, and more recently, within the last 2 years, we actually have rewritten every single breed standard. And now every single breed standard has a caveat that says that health must take preference over every other aspect of the dog, health and soundness. So that must become far before any other health, any other characteristics in the breed. We're also doing, I could sit here for hours and tell you all the things we are doing behind the scenes, but that's effectively the main thing that we are doing. Breeders are now very aware they have to take health first and pay attention to that before any other correct characteristics. Right.
Can you tell me what's the best place to go to get advice on obedience, training and socialisation?
Well, you're going to say I would say this anyway, but the largest training scheme in the country is our Kennel Club Good Citizen scheme, and that's available. You can get information from the Kennel Club. These are classes that are held in loads of village halls around the country. It's a fantastic scheme because it starts off at a very, very basic level, and I believe every dog, every dog's capable of getting the bronze certificate, which is a basic certificate of basic obedience, teaching the dog to sit, but very, very basic stuff. But then if you really want to, there's lots of places you can go on from that. You can go to the silver and gold scheme, but it's the Kennel Club Good Citizen scheme is an excellent place to start, and it's available through us, but it is the largest training scheme in the country, so I think it's pretty successful. I'll take one last question. Anyone last question? No? Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming along today. Please enjoy your day here at Discover Dogs, and I hope I've been able to open your eyes a little bit and give you some advice on what you should do. Thank you very much.